First, though, we all looked with concerned fascination last year when Helen Kapalos was unceremoniously dumped from reading the Channel 10 news. It looked, in the way that television tends to be brutal, to be badly handled. She's now popped up new host of Today Tonight on Channel 7 and will be beginning that career tonight. Helen Kapalos, good morning.
Good morning.
Well, I say you're nobody till you get the sack. It was a bit tough. How did you feel about it all?
Well, yeah, it was a bit discombobulating on that evening. It came as a really massive shock to me. I was leaving the next morning for a holiday and I really just went into a kind of, it was a really odd reaction. It was a sort of a two-tiered reaction. One part of me was quite at peace. I didn't take it personally in terms of I knew I'd tried, that I'd put in my best work. I didn't question my values or my work ethic or anything like that. But it did come as a shock that it was so swift that, within half an hour I was locked out of the building and couldn't access my computer. Was quite a surprise. So
why does it have to be like that? Is that the way of television?
I don't know if it's just just television. I think, unfortunately, it does happen in workplaces, and I'm not sure why it has to be like that. It was really odd. I guess, this is a difficult thing for employers to carry out as well, and I guess they run through the scenarios, and in their particular case, they knew that they were going to be making that announcement the following week. They thought it was probably, they kept telling me that it was, I could have found out when I was on holidays that I didn't, that they did the right thing by telling me just before I went on holiday. So in their mind, probably they thought that they had carried it out in a more sensitive way. Unfortunately, from wherever you sit, no matter who you are, as an employer, you can't help but take something like that personally.
Well, that's true. Did they offer you anything else? Offer you any other
No,
food?
That was my first question, yeah.
What else you got? And they said nothing.
Well, I said to them, are there any other positions, even, reporting or filling in or whatever? And they said, no, nothing.
How long were you reading the news there?
6 years.
It's a long time just to get the don't
Yeah,
come tomorrow.
It was odd. I mean, I still feels a bit of a blur, really, the way that it was executed. But it's the way these things happen, unfortunately.
Then you headed off to New York. Was that restorative?
Well, you could say that. Look, I think New York was probably good to get away in a lot of ways. When I got there, one of the first things I did, I just needed to be so far away from it. And even though I was halfway around the world, I thought I don't feel like being a sightseer right now. I feel like, okay, I'm here, there's a storm. I'm in the middle of Manhattan, but I can't see the storm. It doesn't feel, palpable to me, all this grief and loss and devastation. So the first thing I did was enroll in terms of volunteer sites in a few. So there was a few around Brooklyn, and it was they were looking for volunteers in all sorts of realms. And what I did was just say, look, I'm an international reporter. These are my credentials. I'd like to get on the front line and do some reporting. I'll put it on my blog. I don't know if it'll be carried by anyone else. And they were really, really keen. So I got on the front line. I was attached to a medical assessment team. And I did see some really confronting things, but obviously it was such a grounding experience for me to be there and to see these people that had lost everything.
Not just a job.
Exactly. And so very much put things into perspective immediately. I thought the first thing I did, actually, on the night that it happened, I rang my sister, first phone call, and I said, listen, I've got some really unfortunate news, but no one's died. So,
So what were the confronting things you saw on the front line?
One morning we were asked to go around and check on elderly residents that had called in. Some of them didn't have generators and they didn't have their own. They didn't, obviously, because of the storm. There was no electricity. They didn't have access to heaters or anything. And this one particular lady had held off from asking from it, and so they went there. They were calling. They were asking. Or checking on people regularly. And she was around 70. We were asked to go the next morning and see how she was doing. And unfortunately, she'd passed away during the night. So we discovered her body that morning.
So you've actually gone into the apartment and
Yes.
found her dead?
Yep.
Oh, that's awful.
And then, a few minutes later, we left there. That was really confronting. There were obviously people really distressed. We walked up the road about 200 metres and a family came out of their home and said, please, please, please help us. We've just been allowed back in. We don't know what to do. We need to get access to our clothes. And this one lady, and I wrote about it on the blog, she was incredible. She just, when you're in the middle of a tragedy and everything's surreal, and she just wanted her work pants. She had these particular coupons, food coupons in her work pants. And so we were just, turning around everything to find these work pants. And I remember because I was there with a lot of, ex-Marines and these sort of people that make up part of the constituency on the volunteer teams. And they said it was good to have a woman there because she was just for these people to talk to you. And of course, people, the novelty factor of being an Australian, but it was an incredibly grounding thing to do. It was humbling, and I felt like I was part of history. And in a lot of ways, it did crystallise my intentions about what I wanted to do next.
Well, I was going to ask that. After all that, you've been sacked, you've had this dose of perspective. Why go back into television? It's a weird world, isn't it? Why go back?
Well, it is just a job. I mean, these things are cyclical. So, I mean, to be honest, I've not even contemplated that. It hasn't felt like a return to television. It's just felt like a return to journalism. And for me, I felt one thing that I did realise, and that was crystal clear to me when this happened, was look, I just can't see myself reprising a news reading role right at the moment, because to me, I'd felt over the course of those years, even though I loved my work, I just felt that my journalism was being a bit too suppressed. And I mean, it's, I hosted the Quills last year. I see all these journalists breaking these amazing stories, all of you getting awards. And there's a part of you that thinks, I want to be part of that. I want to be a storyteller. And this is what I was trained to do. So so in some ways, I felt like when all of this happened, maybe it was a bit almost predestined. So I didn't know what Peter Meakin wanted to chat to me about. I was fortunate enough to get some interesting approaches. I didn't necessarily think about going back into television at all, which was interesting to me, and definitely didn't consider news reading right away. I just thought whatever I do next, it needs to be journalism, probably feature work. Then when I spoke to Neil Mooney and Peter Meakin, they seemed quite aligned with what it was that I wanted to do, which is more investigative reporting, more content focused and content-rich work. And that's what I'm hoping we'll see in this program.
Okay, I'd like to get that in a moment. Just the other question about your dismissal, was it sexist? It was interpreted that way. Was it a sexist decision?
No.
You're the girl, you're out?
No, I didn't feel like that at all.
No, good.
Yeah.